rise, face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We're going to jump quickly in here and just let the chief come up and make some appointments for some officers. These are just continuing appointments for 3 officers.
Yes, were we going to handle the dog thing too?
Yeah.
And we'll do that as well.
Okay, yes, I would,
So we're looking for Robert Lambert, Bobby Rutkus, and Trevor Allen to be reappointed.
yes.
Have a motion?
I move that we reappoint Robert Lambert, Bobby Rykus, and Trevor Allen.
I second the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, and now the firearms. The request, I don't have it written.
Yes,
correctly, so-
the language, Andrew? we're
It's
asking-
just asking to dispose of the current handguns as basically a disposition of property.
They're being traded in, though?
So they're being traded in, we've been offered 2 different prices. There's the off-duty gun, like the plainclothes gun, we have 2 of. They've offered us $245, I believe, trade on those, $265 on the full size, like I'm carrying right now. So we
And the
either
current
trade-
ones are 45s?
We're going up to 45s, right, so
You're
these are 40s.
They're 40s now, you go.
SIGs, and the 2 plainclothes carries are Glocks. So we either give them the gun or we give them the money. What I would like to do is to be able to dispose of the guns, so it's a kind of a, it's definitely like a customary, it's one of the benefits of being a police officer. At least once during your career, there's gonna retire your gun, you offer it to the officer for the same price. So we either give them $265 or we give them a gun at the, at the place we're trading, we're buying the guns from. It doesn't matter to them whether they
It
get.
sounds like a low price and low market value for the firearms.
So, yeah, so if that's the best we're gonna get, then the officer gets a chance to buy their gun at, a rate that they're never gonna see again, and it's kind of a nice thing to be able to keep.
Mhm.
So I would
It's a
like-
nice way to pick up a firearm at a reasonable price, too.
It's definitely, absolutely.
But I think for us to try to sell it for more on the market is very complicated.
Right.
And we probably need an FFL
Right.
in the process of pay a fee. Do you have any interest or concern on it?
Sounds straightforward.
What's your favor? Would you like to make a motion? He's asking to be allowed to dispose of the firearms through trade or,
I should say, one retired officer has asked us, so we would like to factor that in. Okay, did his time and retired, and he's asked us.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion that we go ahead with that one, the gifting of that firearm
No,
and
it's
then
not
the
gifting,
resale.
it's selling, I'm told.
Selling to
At
the
that
officer and then the return of the rest.
Satisfactory? I'll second the motion. Any more discussion? Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Welcome, thank you. We've had enough talk about that before, so. Okay,
Seems like a no-brainer to me.
right. Approve the meeting minutes is the next thing on the agenda, but I'm going to table that until Mr. Urban is here and has a chance to review the minutes as well, since he's part of those. So we will put those aside and move us right through to public comment. Do we have any public comment or input this evening to begin? Yes?
Yes, new chairman. I wanted to update if you could on the Barre site for a basketball court. Did anybody talk to John Pondelli about this?
I don't think we've had any update on it yet.
Pondelli, or did Matt mention this?
No. I don't have any update for you or any information on it. Do you? Have you heard anything else? Not as of yet. Matt should be back, I believe he'll be back next meeting.
Maybe I should come back to the next meeting.
If you've been talking with him about it specifically, yes.
Well, it wasn't specific, but it was at the senior center,
Mhm.
and there was some talk about perhaps maybe that would be a good place for it.
When you have discussions with the selectmen, which everyone, I would encourage to do anytime out of the offices, those discussions won't get back to us until we have a board meeting, which we haven't. So he can't call me and discuss it, or or Dylan and discuss these things. So we won't know anything about it because we can't until we have a meeting to discuss it as the board. So he may be working on something with that, and he hasn't brought it to us yet, and we'll find out when we next meet together. But I'd say keep in touch till then and come back when the meeting when he is here, and then it can be brought up in front of the whole board and discussed. But we can't discuss it outside of an open meeting. That make sense?
Yes.
That's our biggest restriction, so.
Letters from Ann Goby,
Mhm.
and there was some talk at that senior center about grants,
Mhm.
money to do this.
Great.
And she was saying that, I don't know, and this new town administrator came, I think it was Mr. Hubbard that was there on the 12th of July, 17,
Okay, well,
that,
I'm gonna cut you off at this point, though. I don't like to let too much side talk go on things that aren't on the agenda. I don't know anything about it, and I really can't get into too much discussion on it, but please feel free to ask to have it on the agenda the next meeting, and get whatever information you have forward, and then I'd be glad to talk in more depth about it. But I really don't like to talk about things that aren't listed on our agenda in any
yeah,
depth.
I'll just leave this with you.
Yeah, you can leave it with Andrew, and he'll hold it or copy it.
Just so that.
Yeah, you can leave it with, let's leave it with Sandy's fine then, too. Thank you.
This is what I'm gonna be asking about.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add for public comment this evening? Top of spring? Okay, old business, IT consulting services, addendum 1.
Yep, so this is just a extension of the current contract with CM Peaks to provide IT consulting services. We did it as a joint procurement last year for 1 year with an option to extend 2 additional with us in Rutland. We got a very good price and very good service over the last year, so we're looking to extend it.
So we're using the same local IT as we do for the mutual aid agreement with the dispatch center?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Do you understand what's that? Any questions about it, or?
And we've felt like they've performed
They've had-
satisfactorily.
Yeah, they've provided us great service over the last year.
Any public input or comment on this before we get too far into it? Obviously, we had issues before dispatch, and the transition with new IT and stuff has gone, I think, pretty well since these guys have taken over. So I'd entertain a motion at this point on that.
Yeah.
Agreement?
I move that we accept the, extend the term contract by 1 year.
Second the motion. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So extended. And we have, as we've discussed at our meetings, office pet policy. And I will let the clerk read that policy to the town. We have developed a policy, and you can hear it before we vote on it.
Okay. The office pet policy. The town of Barre's administration is responsible for assuring the health and safety of all employees. In keeping with this objective, administration does not permit employees to bring their household pets to work. Animals may pose a threat of infection and may cause allergic reactions in other employees. Some employees may feel threatened or distracted by the presence of animals, particularly dogs. In addition, the town's administration wishes to prevent pets from fouling the office space or damaging company property. An employee who requires the help of a service animal, defined by 28 CFR 36-104 as, quote, any dog that is individually trained to do work or perform tasks for the benefit of an individual with a disability, end quote, will be permitted to bring a service animal to the office, provided that the animal's presence does not create a danger to others and does not impose an undue hardship upon the town's municipal functions.
Very good. So we talked about this a couple times off and on, and this is what we've come up with your picture. It's pretty broad stroke, reasonable, straightforward, and certainly makes allowances for service dogs. And I don't know if we have any public comment input on this topic before we move on it. I'd take a motion.
Yeah, I move that we accept this office pet policy as written here
And put it into effect.
and put it into effect.
I'll second that motion. Any more comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Policy is in effect. Okay, planning board, do you want to come join us? Good evening. We had asked, obviously, that before we had appointed Susan LaRose, that you just had a chance to make sure that that's what you wanted before we make an appointment. And we see here, we have a letter from you stating that, and thank you for coming. Do you have any input or anything you'd like to say about it before we move with the appointment?
Well, just that Susan has been an associate now for how long, about?
Since April.
Yeah, since
Yeah.
April. And she's done a good job. She's asked a lot of good questions. And we think she's gonna be a valuable member of the board as a full-time member, and we're in favor of it.
Excellent. Do you have anything?
Nope, I have no questions.
I'll look for a motion on the appointment of Susan LaRose to the committee, if you want.
Yeah, I move that we accept Susan LaRose as a planning board member to replace Dennis Fleming.
Is there a term to this, a certain?
Goes to the
length?
next election.
Next election, so it's until the next election. I'll second the motion. Any more discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'd like to see these seats filling quickly. It's, a lot of times we'd ask for seats and nobody comes in. Now, we also have one here for Ralph Rogers, for the planning board to be an alternate. That's something I assume you all approve of? Just checking before we make it.
There are other people that we've had in mind.
Okay.
For the alternate position. And we've talked to a few of them, and we don't have anybody selected at this moment.
Okay. So why don't we table that and give you some time and let the full board.
That would be good.
Yeah, go ahead, comment.
Yeah, it was just like such a fast transition that, you know, like you said, you might wanna table that and, you know,
Yeah.
keep Sue where she is and.
Well, that's
like,
what.
it was such a quick
Exactly.
transition that we'd like to,
That's fair enough. The one night that I don't silence my phone, what do? Every night I walk in, he sees me play with a silly thing. Sorry about that.
Everybody
but we
starts
still
grabbing
have
people
other
behind it.
people that like we're interested in, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And Dennis sort of kept his cards pretty close to his chest, and I think he was
Surprise, huh?
thinking about retiring from the board, but he didn't want to do it before the town meeting. And so then it happened, and it happened pretty quickly, so it was a little bit of a surprise.
Took you a little off guard, wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
Very.
Just like my phone going off when I don't put on airplane mode for the first time ever in a meeting. Sorry. All right, no, I have no problem. I'm just tabling that. All right with you? I mean, I think.
Yeah, we can table until at least.
We've got through, obviously, the major hurdles. The bylaws had to go and done, thank goodness. So there's no rush to fill the seat, and I'd always rather take a moment and look at all the candidates. I've got nothing against Ralph, certainly. I think he has a lot of good input on things. But we'll wait and see what you have for candidates and
Okay,
what you
we'll
want
get
to
back to you
recommend.
quickly.
We always want to take your recommendation on your committee. We don't want to push anybody on any committee. That's always been our policy. So we will table that.
Okay.
And anything else you want to talk about while you're here or discuss, or you?
Just that we've got some important issues coming up. Zoning, housing, we want to take a look at the zoning reg. We don't have a master plan here in Barre. And I'm just saying this preliminarily, I want to get some information together and then come to the selectmen and say, here are the things we want to do.
I'm
for
sure
this
we'd
coming
like to have
year.
input on that.
Oh,
We
yeah.
get to look at it, which is always fun, but.
Well, we want to make sure we're ready. There's Todd Miller, who was on the planning board for a
Mhm.
while, who does housing now.
No, who Todd is.
He thinks that Barre is a prime candidate for what's been going on in Rutland, that we could be inundated with lots of development. So we want to make sure we've got the bylaw in place to manage that
And
properly.
I think you'll find that at least two of these selectmen will have opinions on directions we might want to have us in developing the town and ways we can look towards revenues and businesses. So I think it's going to be a welcome debate and discussion for everybody. I think it's long overdue to talk about the future and future revenues and things for the town. And to operate that without a plan is ludicrous. So it's hugely important, and they've stated that, Todd stated that at the information he brings to us. And I look forward to that. And I want to take this time to congratulate you all on the marijuana bylaws being passed, and the bylaws. As you know, I spoke my piece on it, which is my piece, but I'm 100% behind your bylaws when they pass, and you'll have nothing but assistance from me on them, I guarantee you that. And I'm glad they're done.
Great,
Very
thank
glad
you.
they're done.
So are we.
Oh, I bet. Believe me, we've been at this a while, since I've been
TV,
on.
high five.
So, yeah, there you go. Since I've been on, we've been
Long
doing this.
distance.
I walked into this and day one, so
Yeah.
I'm glad to see it done. Anything you want to say or talk to them about?
No.
Comments while they're here?
No comments for that.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Great.
It's going to be
Thank
a
you.
record meeting tonight. I
Thank
hope.
you.
Thank you very much.
You're marking them off pretty fast there.
That was the idea, keep it light.
What is that?
Okay. you.
All right.
All right.
I want to be an associate selectman.
I said you could sit on the other side, come on.
Oh, did you?
I said you could sit there, if you wanna be up
Oh,
at
I
the table,
thought
you're
you
not
were
up here.
there.
We're not gonna go that far.
Sign.
We don't wanna confuse everyone.
Well, good night, you guys, good night.
All right, good night. Okay, Council on Aging. We have, hello, please know that the Council on Aging Board has recommended Mary Ann Watson and Dee Dee Charlton to be appointed to the Council on Aging Board to fill vacant slots by Pat Kowal and Bev Brooks. And that's from Eileen, from our director. Anything you want to say about that, or make a motion on that?
I mean, I don't know Marion Watson or Dee Charlton, but if the recommendation is there, I trust it.
Me as well. I prefer, when you haven't been on for these, but in the past, I always ask that our department heads, if we pick department heads, I like the board to do that. When they pick board members, committee members, or employees, I like them to do that with the town administrator. And I assume Andrew's okay with these. That's why we're looking at it, so that would be my feeling. So I'd entertain a motion on it.
Yeah, I would move that we appoint Marion Watson and Dee Charlton to the COA board.
And I will second that motion. Any comment or public input? Hearing none, I'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. And one more piece of business. We have some more year-end transfers trickling in from the end of the fiscal year. And I will let the administrator explain these rather than try to read these, because somebody may or may not need reading glasses and didn't bring any.
So mainly, most of these are just, slight overages, like the interest accounts at the end, those were just higher than what the budgeted amount of interest was. Some of the salary accounts that were over, they were just, they were calculated in the initial budget at 52 weeks rather than 52.2. So those went slightly over. The police department salaries one, that one's the highest one that's
I was looking at that.
in the deficit. We had actually, before the May 1st cutoff, had taken $10,000 out of that to move over into overtime, so that way we could avoid that deficit. So it ended up hitting us on the back end, but since we're past May 1st, we could take it interdepartmentally. So that was the one big hit. That pretty much covers most of them. The one fire expenses one, that one was supposed to be for, it's actually interdepartmental. He had the chief had a pending interdepartmental transfer there, and we didn't pass it through before the end of the fiscal year, so it just went through the interdepartmentals.
Okay, so all in all, it looks like we're transferring 50, I believe that is.
50,000.
It really is that bad in my eyes, that's so embarrassing. $50,700.15 into departmental transfers. So this doesn't affect our overall operating budget.
Not at
It's
all.
transferring money for end of year balances between accounts. If anybody's interested in seeing this list, they can contact Andrew, and I assume get a copy if you'd like it during the week. But I would entertain a motion on this.
I move that we approve this list of,
Well, one second, I'm entertaining the motion then. Go ahead.
I move that we approve this list of interdepartmental transfers as written.
I'll second your motion, and now I'll take discussion on it.
I'm just questioning regional dispatch, why they had so much left.
Because the initial
Assessment.
budget, the initial assessment didn't take into account the addition of Warren. So because they weren't sure when Warren was actually gonna come online, so we drafted it based off the 4 towns, so when it did come in, then they reduced their assessment.
So give us that balance to use up.
And then the town roads, why did they have so much? We need help on our town roads.
Yeah.
They could come spend it on my road.
A lot of us feel that way. but
I guess that would be a question for Jason, but I don't have a.
Yeah.
answer
I
for
think
that.
our problem with roads has been obviously, at the DPW commission meetings last year, we had an issue with the bridge.
It was mainly chapter
that-
90.
And it held up chapter 90 funds, and
Yeah,
so this is a different account, you're saying this is a town?
This is the money that we actually appropriate
Okay, but-
into town roads.
But even still, because of that holdup on the bridge, that diverted our attention to do that and some other things that we couldn't proceed on. It held up all of our road fund and our drainage repair and things we had to do before, and we put off a whole year of roads last year almost completely. This year, they've been catching up and doing some of the things off that list, but once again, we still don't have our DPW foreman, who's still out with injury. Hoping he still comes back, and we don't know for sure if he will. He's still has his own medical issues, and I don't know his plans. And whenever we have rains like we did last week, they've been patching roads for an entire week after the rains. And I just think we don't get to
My feeling is
it.
that he must have seen this excess in that account, because our books closed June 30th, like the 1st of June. He should have been spending some of it and fixing some of the small things that he didn't
Well,
do.
if there's no time to fix it, I would rather see him roll it over like this and let it go back into something, either get back into free cash or get used in a transfer, than waste it and buy something just as, I hate the use it, lose it attitude. But I think our problem is we've been taxed for manpower down there and getting things done, and I'm hoping that maybe, I was talking to Jason, and maybe we'll be able to look at hiring a machine to do some of the work, because he has limited personnel that can operate the machines in the roads and maybe get some of these other works done and catch up on stuff. But missing the foreman's a crucial person to be missing down there, which has been over a year now. And I think
As
it's
a
been.
finance person, looking at it,
Yes.
so you cut their budget the next year. If they're not gonna use it, they don't get it.
And I'm against that philosophy too.
But that's
Normally
the way-
we use it, what I'm saying is.
That's the way budgets go.
We can bring it to the, I'd suggest come to the next DPW meeting, we can have a lengthy discussion about it there, and more specifically the DPW, but my impression would be, this isn't, an unusual circumstance, that they couldn't get the labor hours together, unless we wanted to try to replace an extra laborer, but that doesn't replace the foreman. You can't replace that skill level of work to get these things done, and without the foreman, it makes it hard to get projects done. You could normally split with Jason running personnel and Bill running personnel, and basically have two crews going. We've been down to basically one for a year, and that's what put the projects off. So I would not want to cut the budget and limit the work we can do the following year because of a labor issue, because of injuries that we had the first year. That's why I wouldn't want to recommend cutting it.
I would
But-
just like to make a plug, though, that
Absolutely.
if Jason could come to our finance committee and discuss things with us, it would be a benefit for us to understand.
Okay, and I think when we
And there
get,
has been a problem there.
yeah, when we get into budgeting, we'll have to make a concerted effort at that this year in the budgeting timeframe. And maybe he'll be more conducive to coming in and conversing. I think things over the years, there was more tension between him and some of the offices, and it's probably left some residual issues, I don't know, but I'm sure he'll wanna, he's been, I think, more open to things lately, in my opinion, and I think he's getting to trust that people aren't after him or doesn't feel uncomfortable.
Well,
and-
we know what he's doing, we can understand
Yeah.
things and work things out.
Right. And-
That's what we're there for.
And we are getting to that, and that's always been our goal since at least since Matt and I and Charlie were in there for the last 2 years, is trying to get everybody interdepartmentally to work together. And I think a lot of people, you'd have to know from talking to them, a lot more people are more open. They're easy to ask for things if they need them. There's no fear that if they ask because they need something, that they're gonna have some sort of repercussion because they're not doing their job well, but rather they're gonna get the assistance they need. And I think overall, our town offices have had several people comment they enjoy walking into this building now. The people are nice to deal with, the attitudes seem better, and that's the overall goal. And it's, Jason, I think, is getting better to work with. I found he was resistant the first year, and he's really isn't now, not to me anyways. And I really know this has been a difficult year on him. He's picked up a lot of slack with, well inspections and trying to take on the job of the foreman while he's still being the director. It's challenging. And he's put a lot of hours in, to keep that place running. And I think overall, our roads and our grounds are taken pretty well care of in town. They're not as good as we'd like the roads right now, but there's a reason we fell behind on that. And I've been talking with him about possible solutions to that. Like I said, possibly hiring somebody to come in with a machine. If we hire someone to do a road, it's like 4 times the cost of something outrageous, or 5 times the cost. But if we hire a machine to come do the digging and we have our laborers that can do the road, it's a very little incremental expense, and we can get some more stuff done. And because he acknowledges there's more we'd like to get done on him. this year. And just find out how to do it. We don't have Bill Ward back, and I'm hoping we get him back, and I just, not optimistic after a year plus that, you know, he'll get well enough. I hope he does. Until then, we try not to sell his position out on him, because if we have someone that can come back, we want him to come back.
We'd
So
just
we
like
don't
to
wanna-
see, when you look at this at the end of
I-
the year,
I understand.
not to have people overspending and people
Right.
underspending.
And we always have some of each, and I think this
You
year
have
wasn't,
some.
I think this year wasn't that bad. Last year with the rollover in the police department and having to fill in a lot of overtime shifts, we had great overages. I don't mean this fiscal year just closed, I mean the year prior to that, when we go back. And I think that was much better this year. This past 2018 was better than 2017. And I think it's gonna get much better again. And I think overall, the departments came in much closer in everything. I don't think we had that many requests or issues or concerns. I don't recall any real concerns near the end of the fiscal year budgets going over. Just in the very end, funneling some money.
I mean, there were a few overtime issues, you know, specifically to the police, but really everything else is just pretty much pennies.
But I hear you, Claire, and I agree, we'd like to have things closer, and I think this is an anomaly.
That's the accounting
Right,
balance budget.
yeah, and I think this is an anomaly because of the labor issue, and I think that will be settled. I would think before the end of, by the time budget comes around, we'll have an idea where Bill's gonna be. If we're gonna have to look to find someone to fill that role, or if he's gonna be stepping, coming back in. And then that should start to get that town service back up where it needs to be again, but he's a local guy, we know him, everybody knows him. We don't wanna fill his spot unless we have to. We wanna leave it there for him, and that's giving us some suffrage for it, but I think it's reasonable. So. Any other comment? Okay, we had a motion, a second, to approve these interdepartmental transfers. I'll call for a vote. Those in favor? Aye. Carries. And that ends my major list. Correspondence, we don't have any? or do we?
Nothing new has come in.
Dylan, do you have anything you want to bring in for a selectman report this evening?
Do not.
Nor do I. Andrew, would you like anything?
Yeah.
Well, seeing we've done all of our business, we'll ask once again for input. There we go. Go
I
ahead.
have one question.
Sure.
Is the planning board going to be picking the planning board alternate, like they picked Dennis's replacement?
Usually, we let the boards pick their alternate, unless we have a real strong opinion of otherwise. Like, when we filled the Council on Aging Director, the council actually gave us recommendations, 3. We did not pick their top recommendation, but we stayed within the 3.
Yeah.
And we're likely to have the same scenario there, but where it's not a department head, if it's someone that works with them and they want somebody for their reason, unless we see a conflict or a reason not to appoint, I'd rather let the departments function on their own. There's a risk that you get people pulling like-minded people in and they have an agenda. I don't see that with our planning board, I really don't, and I don't think there's gonna be an issue, and if there is, we can address that at that point. Until that becomes an issue, I think this board's gonna tend to want to let all these boards fill themselves, bring people in that they can work with, and let department heads pick their own employees.
Okay, I'll withdraw my application.
I wouldn't, if you,
I'm okay with that.
you can still leave it in, they still may choose you, we don't know. They just don't wanna do
I'll
it.
just withdraw it and let them do what they're going to do. It's okay.
Okay.
I'm on the finance committee and I'll wait till next election.
Okay, it shall be considered withdrawn.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Nope. Look for the appropriate motion.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that motion. In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
30 minutes.
30 minutes.